Yeah, so I was just saying, your crew seems like a really good group of guys.
Yeah. That's it. We're nothing without them. You know, doesn't matter what we've done in the past or what great idea I might have or somebody has, but you got to go through it with a team.
Yeah.
So that's pretty important.
Well, Leadership 101, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, I mean, I don't know if you listen to the show or not, but kind of how I like to run it when I have a guest on is give a little brief introduction, and then you just kind of tell your story, and then we just take it from there. Like, I have a little bit of notes here, but I don't like these. I like the podcast to just feel like an authentic conversation instead of like, please tell me about A. You know what I mean?
No, it's just we're hanging out somewhere.
I think people crave conversation, and authentic conversation seems to put out the best products. So I just have fun with it, man, you know? Today I'm joined by Grant Wooldridge, and I met Grant, what was it, 2017?
Yeah, might have been earlier even at this rate, but yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah.
And I purchased a boat from him, and he owns and runs a boat manufacturer here in Seattle. And I think it's a cool story because like the podcast is always about like police, military, fighting, like the things that have kind of encompassed my life. But when I have guests on that are kind of outside of the norm, I get a lot of positive feedback. And people love stories like everyday American stories. And my wife was actually like, dude, you and Grant have always vibed. You should totally have him on. I was like, that's a really good idea, you know?
Good.
So yeah, just tell us kind of like what you guys are all about and maybe how it started. We'll just take it from there and have fun with it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, one, I appreciate you having me on and giving me the opportunity. I love the conversation no matter what. And yeah, I was listening to your conversations the other day with the Novaks and hearing their up and down story and what it takes to win when the odds are against you at times and surprises happen. And so that's encouraging. So thanks to them, whoever they are. That was good. That was a good talk.
Yeah, they're good people.
Yeah. So the story of Wooldridge Boats is far larger than me, that's for sure. I don't take it for granted what I get to do. I get to build toys and work with people who are buying toys and build relationship with a great team. And the biggest benefit that's come out of this so far, and my father would tell you the same thing, is the relationships that we've got to build with not only the amazing team that we have, which is cool. You see these people sometimes more than your own family because you're here all the time. And then, the relationships that we go do things outside of here. And I'm just real thankful for that. And then the relationships and friendships built because of someone who bought a boat, they bought a boat, and then you start to build a relationship. And those are some of my greatest relationships. And so super thankful for that. So how did it all start? Well, we're sitting here in the conference room. You can see a few photos around of my great grandfather, Glenn Wooldridge Sr. So he grew up in Grants Pass, Oregon, which is in Central Oregon, on a river called the Rogue River, which basically goes from the interior of Oregon and to the coast, and it makes it to the coast at Gold Beach. Oh, he always loved being outside. Of course, that's what you did. And as a young man, even being down next to the river and the water just excited him, whether it was sticking a little piece of wood in the water and watching it float down and seeing what the different tiny little ripples would do in a creek to the wood and just seeing how things would react. And it's always like a dream to like, hey, where does this go? Because there was not documentation at that point of what this river was like. They knew it made it to the coast. That's only obvious. But what does it entail? What does a rapids look like? Is there canyons? Is it passable? Who's done it before? Has anyone mapped it? What's this like? It was unheard of to like, for fun, go float down a river. That's dangerous, right? You're hauling supplies if you're going to do it, or you do it with mules. That's the trustworthy way to get some stuff down river, right? So him and a buddy, they were, in school, even at the time, they're teenagers, they pulled together between themselves $6 and they bought lumber and they're like, let's build a boat and go on the adventure of a lifetime, man.
Wow.
And they're like, yeah, so $6 at the time, bought enough lumber for them to build their first makeshift boat, drop it in and, wrap up some food or whatever they're going to do and see ya. We're off on an adventure, we're heading down this river,
Do you know what year this was?
Yeah. So this was 1915.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's
just like that, the beginning of Wooldridge Boats.
That's it, man. That right there, that's the start. right? So what's our why? It's the same why he had, to be on the river, to have an adventure, to make the river go further, to be out there and be the hero of your story. You know, our job here is to be Obi-Wan Kenobi and to make the customers, the Luke Skywalkers, the hero of their story, right? We're just the guide. They're the awesome ones. We're not cool. We can just help guide them to be the man of their family, of their friends, lead that whole situation. So anyhow, he built a boat and they went for it, man. They floated down the river, and sure enough, there was some crazy stuff, crazy rapids, crazy places where they had to portage the boat 100 yards or more, you know, because it's just impassable because the rocks and the jaggedness. And sure enough, they made it to Gold Beach at the coast, and they fished a little bit, then hiked home, sold the boat and hiked home. And he had decided at that point, you know what, whatever I do in this life, it's going to have something to do with this river and being on the river, because all the wild game and the fish and just the adventure of it. He's like, this is where my heart belongs.
Wow.
So he started building boats, not to be like, hey, this is a great business, let's build boats and sell them and make money. It
just
was like,
out of passion.
I just need to be on the water. So what do you need to do to be on the water? Well, I need a boat. And you build one, and eventually someone's like, hey, can I buy your boat? And he makes another one that makes it even better, or just keeps doing that process to try and make it even better. And so he became a very good river runner, great at reading water and doing that whole thing. And there came a point where people would want to go with him, and to make a living out of this is like, sure, I'll take you along. Everyone was scared to do this on their own. So he started having trips where he'd take people down the river and guiding them. And he ended up taking Clark Gable, Ginger Rogers, Herbert Hoover, and Zane Grey down the road. And that's kind of the beginning. And then people, as they would learn or be guided by him and develop a comfort, would want their own boat. And so he'd start building boats.
Wow. Yeah, I've seen some of your guys' footage of your river runners.
Yeah.
And I've been on the water most of my life, but on the ocean.
Yeah.
And so I watched some of those videos of guys going full bore in what looks like 6 inches of water.
Yeah.
I'm like, that looks crazy.
Yeah. 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 There's a little margin there.
Yeah.
not much margin for error, but yeah, with the modern jet boats now, it's pretty fun. And with our developed shape of bottom that was created by my father and our tunnel, we'll run in the right conditions. We can run a jet boat in 3 inches of water.
Wow.
And not touch the bottom. Now, at that point, it's there's a lot of opportunity to go touch the bottom.
Yeah.
So you can get yourself in that situation pretty snappy, you know.
Yeah. Are most of the rivers like highly mapped out these days for people to understand that?
Mapped out as far as the shape and where they start and where they go, yes. As far as like runnable to a jet boat, like can you tell by looking at a map or something? No, not necessarily, because especially with, you know, as a river water height changes, that changes things dramatically, you know, because there's times that certain areas are totally impassable. There's no way. And then you get more water, whether it's due to rain or a dam controlled river that releases more water, then you can run something.
Got it. Okay.
And so with like the local rivers we have here, the Skycomish or Snohomish or Skagit or whatever, those are a lot of gravel bar type rivers, at least down in the lower sections. And so you're running shallow, skinny, braided stuff. And then, you know, you go over to say like the Salmon River in Idaho, or the Snake River in Idaho, where there can be much larger hydraulics. And so now you're not battling 2 inches or 3 inches of water in skinny gravel bars. You're battling very deep, but fast moving, aggressive hydraulic water. So it's a whole different type of river running and, way to read water. These boats you've seen out here are for shallow water. Then the big one you saw out there that had the 454 in it and the big cabin, that's made for big hydraulic, big crazy white water.
Okay. You know? Now, one thing that's fascinated me, because like I said, I grew up on the water. My dad was a commercial fisherman, so I spent every summer in
really?
Alaska.
Where at?
Sitka.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we lived down here, and then April or May, the whole family would get on the boat in the port of Everett. We'd make the trip up to Sitka, and then he would fish out of Southeast Alaska. And I mean, we used to make that trip, and he did have a radar. That was the extent of his technology, but everything else was done with maps and compasses. And him and my mom would take turns in the captain's seat, and they'd run that boat 24/7. And that was just normal life.
That's amazing.
And now, you know, coming full circle, you know, my dad, I actually wish that I'd regained my passion for boating when he was still alive, but he passed in 2015. Maybe that's part of what ignited it, because one of our last days together, we went and looked at boats, and he goes, I think I have one more season in me, you know?
Wow.
And so he kind of wanted to get back into that. And then I started looking at boats and kind of getting the bug, and ended up buying a boat through you guys. And for listeners, it's a 26-foot offshore pilot house, and the thing is it's a beast. It's a amazing piece of equipment. And but we got the state-of-the-art GPS, and it's almost like dummy proof to go boating now. And we go all over the San Juans. We usually launch out of Bellingham so we can be up north of Orcas and all of the Susha and all those areas up there. But it's fascinating because every single little rock, you can be anywhere, and your GPS is like, if there's a rock that's 5 feet under the surface of the water, it's annotated on your map. Even thick kelp beds are annotated on your maps. And it's like,
how would we have survived sailing back in the day?
That's what
how would we have made it?
That's what I'm saying,
everything, man.
I feel like I'm almost like shortchanging my ability to be a captain, because like I rely on modern equipment so much. But at the same time, I mean, I got 3 or 5 little kids on the boat. If they bring their friends, it's like I'd be foolish to not do a map recon and check out the area and know what's below the surface.
Totally.
And an interesting story is we had a little lodge in Southeast Alaska in Sitka, and because my dad did the commercial thing for a while, and then he switched over to guiding trips. He bought a little piece of property, built some cabins on the beach, and we used to watch boats fly by the cabin. And in low tide, there was some exposed rocks out there, but in high tide, you couldn't see them. And so we would watch boats just full throttle going right over these rocks. And it happened all the time. And then sure as shit, just rule of percentages.
Yep.
Eventually somebody hit one of those rocks. And I remember thinking like, that was just boating life since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Until we have GPSs.
Yeah.
You know? Like they had it so much harder than us.
It's way harder, man.
I think about like Leif Erikson or Christopher Columbus, like these adventurers hundreds of years ago. Can you imagine just getting on a boat and saying, let's go that way and see what we can find?
No.
Like it's nuts, man.
I can't, especially if you didn't know what was out there, man. And with weather and everything else and navigating by stars, I mean, holy moly.
I know.
I can't imagine it.
And we're going off on a tangent, but I like tangents.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I think we texted about it. Did you see they found the Endurance 2 weeks ago?
I sent you that video.
You sent it to me. That's right. So I've been sending that to everybody because it was I read that book a long time ago, but Mike Glover, do you follow Mike?
Yep.
Okay. So Mike Glover on Instagram posted something about, his whole thing is fieldcraft survival and like the survivalist mentality. And he goes, everyone should read this book. And so I was actually on a road trip when he posted that, and I re-listened to it.
Yeah.
And that was just a year or 2 ago.
Yeah.
And then sure as shit. Oh, I actually sent that to Mike. You sent it to me, and then I sent it to Mike.
Yeah. And then you posted something about it back then. So I listened to a lot of books or podcasts when I'm running or something or driving. And so I listened to it, and it was like, I listened to that thing quickly. It was like one of those ones that was like, this is incredible. Shackleton, what a man, not only a survivalist, but a leader to keep that many. Well, if you haven't listened, I don't want to spoil it, but you guys got to go listen to the
I'll
the
spoil
Endurance.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Their boat sunk.
Yeah.
And
goodbye.
they lived on a glacier floating around in Antarctica for a year.
and then to get to where they had to go, this whole process was like a 2-year process from when they shipped out and then getting everybody back or whatever. So.
And that's one of those stories where if you said, hey, this group of guys did this, you'd be like, come on, how is that? You can't even wrap your mind around it. But they killed seals.
Yep.
Ate the meat and burned the blubber.
The blubber was like huge deal.
Yeah.
Huge deal.
And it's like, man, like stories that highlight the human spirit like that. Everybody should listen to that book.
You should. And then when you think life's hard someday or you're having a bad day, friggin' pull yourself out and go think about somebody who went through some real stuff.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
No, perspective
we're
is
pussified
everything.
this year, and so now everyone's trying to anyways, go look at that. Go look at someone who survived Beck Weathers on K2, falling over in a snowdrift and wakes up and comes to and makes it back. I mean, that ain't even nothing compared to Shackleton. But then, yeah, all that type of stuff is incredible. I just read that one I sent to you, 72 Days in the Andes or whatever, Miracle in the Andes, about that, Argentinian football team, or I guess it was a rugby team that crashed in 72 and 72 days, man.
Yeah.
And what they had to do to survive. I mean, incredible.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Have you watched 14 Peaks yet?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Incredible. Yeah. I sent that to, I love that type of stuff.
You brought up K2. I had to bring up Nims Purja.
Oh, dude.
You know what's funny is I wanted to reach out to him to see.
And I meant Everest with Beck Weathers. He was on Everest.
Oh,
but
okay.
There's some great K2 survival stories
too.
Yeah.
I wanted to reach out to him, see if he'd be interested in doing the podcast, especially because we both have like a military background and special operations. I thought maybe he'd want to do it. And I haven't done it yet, but then he was on Rogan. I was like, no. I mean, I would still be honored to do it.
You still must.
It's like, dude, now, like, once you've done Rogan, that's the pinnacle of podcasting,
Obviously, you think you know people by watching a video about them or seeing their social media, but that dude seems like he's about as down to earth as anybody.
He has to be.
Yeah. And he's a humble dude. I mean, anyone who's going to stop his own expedition to save lives when, time is of the essence for what he's trying to accomplish, which is, world record setting.
Yep.
And he stops to do that. That guy has the mentality. He's a humble human being. That's important.
When everybody else was saying, no, come back to camp.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
No, life is worth it. What's a life worth?
I don't leave people behind.
Don't leave.
And dude, every time I watch that, I tear up. Like, it touches me in an emotional way that almost no other piece of film has.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've watched it, I say 14 times, one for each peak,
Yeah.
but I've lost count. Like, it was for the first, 2 months after it was released, when I'm laying in bed at night, it's like, dude, let's throw that on just to it makes me grateful. It fills me with gratitude when I see human beings out there doing amazing things. And it kind of goes back to what you just touched on. Instead of focusing on all the negativity and all the bullshit and what we can be mad about, dude, you can still go out there and live with passion and do these incredible things. And we have to remember that that's what this life's about.
Absolutely.
And when you see another man like Nims Purja, none of his stuff is about like the negative aspects of the government or the bullshit that we're dealing with. And I'm not saying turn a blind eye to that, right? You have to have an understanding of the field you're playing on.
That's right.
And we're in a weird time right now.
Yep.
And a lot of my platform has been geared towards that. But it can't be to the extent where it's compromising your own happiness or your own passion.
100% agree.
Yeah.
People say, oh, isn't this crazy time? Isn't this scary? Oh, our kids and all the stuff that's being taught or this or that. And yes. Yeah, I could go down that road pretty easy. But on the other hand, it's like, what a great time we're in, man. What an amazing 100%. Adventure of a season that we get to live in.
Yeah.
There's people out there that minds are screwed up and all messed up, and people are telling something, they're believing a lie. They need people to go, you know what? That's not worth being afraid about. It's going to be all right.
Yeah.
It's okay. Look at this amazing adventure. We get to say we were born in this time. We were chosen for this time to be a light, to encourage others when stuff's going wrong. That doesn't mean you don't plan, you don't think, you don't take care of yourself, you don't take care of your mind, you don't take care of your body. You still do that. But on the other hand, there's a lot of people need people that can have a positive outlook and still find the gold in some craziness.
And and that's kind of what I've been telling like my kids and my family and my close circle. It's like, we want to be, a lot of the stuff that we've been subjected to feels bad, right?
Yeah.
Some of these mandates and the government overreach and the way they're treating their constituents. And it's like, it makes me feel bad. And it almost sometimes feels like a shadow that's cast over society. But the other side of it is, man, I think we're going to get to live through some of the most historical times that America has seen since its like inception.
Yeah, that's right.
That's exciting.
Come on.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? That's exciting.
It is exciting.
Because I look at like my grandfather's generation. My grandfather literally worked in a sawmill cutting roofing shingles for like 70 years. And then he retired and he watched The Price is Right for another 15 years. And then he died. And he was a great man. And like, I'm not taking anything away from his life, but it was a very like, how do I say this and not sound like pejorative? It was just, he did life in a very almost mundane fashion. Very 9 to 5-ish, didn't have much adventure, didn't have much passion. He just did what he needed to do to pay the bills, feed the family. And I mean, and that was that generation. That's what was the norm, you know? But I look at like his life versus where I think the world's heading today.
Yeah.
I choose this.
Yeah.
I would rather be part of like some massive change and some pretty, just the trajectory of this country is probably going to change massively.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to witness this.
That's right.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. That's cool.
You know?
Why not be involved in a little risk? You know?
Dude, yes.
Yeah.
And dude, risk is fun.
Yeah.
You know, the unknown is fun. It should call you. It should feel exciting.
Yeah.
You know? We talk about that on the podcast a lot. It's like, you know, like my last episode hasn't even released yet, but it was with a buddy who at 46 years old, very successful custom home builder, and was like, I just quit. And obviously projects that I was under contract on, I'm going to finish them out because I gave people my word.
Yeah.
But I need a change.
You
know?
Yeah. Step out and do something big.
Step out, do something big.
Well, that kind of is why we're here where we are today. Was my grandfather did something big and risky. So my great-grandfather had started running boats, doing all the thing, right?
So the great-grandfather was the original boat
started
builder.
it all,
okay.
Right? And so he had two sons. He had Bruce and Bob. Bob's my grandfather, and Bruce would be, I guess, my great-uncle or something like that. Cool guy. Both, Bruce got real into running rivers and building some boats too. And there came a point where my grandfather was like, you know what, done this enough. I don't need to keep building boats and whatever. Just kind of was petering a little bit. Mm-hmm. My grandfather had moved up here, had traveled all around. He had lived in San Francisco, driving taxis, done some adventure in Oregon and California, and been up here to Washington. He was just kind of an adventurer. Let's go check things out. And he was up here and he met the love of his life, my grandmother. And so they got married, and that's why Seattle is now where Wooldridge Boats is. But
got it.
Previous to Wooldridge Boats, my grandfather, he was a mechanic and drove taxis, but also front end mechanic, brakes and tires and alignment and all that type of stuff. Had a couple kids, and there's a point he was 50 years old, and he was, you know, his father was a riverboat legend and all these things, but he really at this point didn't have anything to do with the boat business. My grandfather, unlike his father, my great grandfather, and he's 50 years old, and he felt like, you know what, him and my grandfather, Christians, and they felt like God said, you know, step out, mortgage your home. You're 50 years old, and start a business. And he wanted to take the risk.
Dude, so, this is literally giving me chills.
So at 50 years old, he did that. He called his dad and his brother and asked them both. He's like, hey, I'd like to continue what we had done as a family, what you had started, because I can tell you're not, the passion's not necessarily there. My great grandfather's older, and why do I need to keep? He did it for adventure. It wasn't the business for him. Never really was. He made a great business of it, did a good job, but it was more about the adventure and the people. And my grandfather says, hey, I want to continue this up here in Seattle. And he asked them both separately. And he said, if either one of them had opposed, he wouldn't have done it. And they're both like, yeah, go for it. Give her a shot, you know? So he started.
What did he think they may oppose? Like putting the family name?
Yeah, because at the time, so there was Wooldridge Boats that my great grandfather was building. Mm-hmm. And then my great uncle, Bruce Wooldridge, had Bruce Wooldridge and Sons. So he was kind of building some Wooldridge boats too, under the name Bruce Wooldridge and Sons down there in Oregon.
I see. And
so my grandfather, Bob, says, hey, can I start bringing the design of drift boats up here and inboards and start selling them? And that's how it started. And both of them said, go for it. Under the Wooldridge Boats name, go for it. Neither of them said that would be a problem at all. So he mortgages his home. He's 50 years old, has kids, had a fine business or a career. He was working for someone, but he says, I want to work for myself. I feel like I'm called to do that. I'm supposed to start this thing. And so he mortgaged, what a risk at 50 years old, right? Yeah. So he did that and started doing well, started selling these things. And then he started making his own designs and building them up here.
And what year was this?
Oh boy, this was in the 70s.
Okay.
So he had a guy working for him Not my dad at the time. He had my dad was working for a tire shop doing brakes and tires and different stuff like that. And so my grandfather had hired a guy to come do some welding and make some stuff. And well, this guy was late and had a bad attitude and just kind of was a problem to work with. And one day my father, Glenn, who you met just a minute ago, came by the shop and my grandfather asked him, hey, basically, you want to come do this with me? And my dad's like, well, sure. And when do you want me to start? And he's like, how about today? And so then the other guy shows up and my grandfather says, hey, you can go home. I don't need you anymore, because the guy was a slacker anyways. So he went home, and then my dad did some Votech school and whatnot. And my dad started being the designer, innovator, welder. And that's where it really changed the page and started being invented into what we are today.
Wow.
But because of a risk, someone stepping out of their comfort zone, out of an area that was going just fine, and we're not meant to live in comfort.
No, comfort is the silent killer.
Yeah.
And that goes for all aspects of your life. Your fitness, your intelligence, your business. Mm-hmm. If you're not willing to step out and get uncomfortable, you're not going to grow.
That's right.
That's a big thing we talk about on the show. So I'm actually fascinated to hear, because I knew that Wooldridge Boats had, over 100-year lineage.
Yeah.
But to hear how it played out, where your grandfather actually didn't really hop in until he was over 50 years old.
That's right.
It's inspiring, man.
Yeah.
And so in the 70s, then you or him and your father just started, were they just only taking orders for boats like you guys still do? Is that kind of how it worked?
Yeah, just started taking orders and starting, relationship with the customer and building the quality product and doing what you say you're going to do, and not going into debt, and paying for what
I see.
Yeah. So that they just a real smart, conservative business model and working hard, and the first shop that they had together, it was just down here in South Park. They rented a garage and there was no bathroom, no running water, no phone, and there's no heat. And so for lunch, they'd sit in the truck with the key on, the key running, and listen to the radio and eat lunch together and get back to work, And so that's how it started. Then they came up with some new models and started hiring different guys and people who ended up working here for a long time, 35, 40 years, who I had a great relationship with in my life even.
Wow. Yeah. So I don't know if I've told you the story of how I came across you guys.
No, but I did want to hear some more about Alaska, because that sounds freaking like an epic way to grow up there. But
I think this is important though, because it's really, it's proven to me that like supporting a smaller business is not only like beneficial to you guys, but man, like if I bought one of those mass produced boats, like a Duckworth or whatever, like, I mean, if I have a problem with my boat, I can text you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that wouldn't be available with some massive corporation. And being new to boating, like I said, I grew up on a boat, but when I got back into it, there's a lot that can go wrong, And one of your electricians was on the phone with me and my wife for like a half hour one day while we had the voltmeter. He's like, all right, touch one connector here and then touch one right here. What does it read? All right, now touch one here and touch one there. What does it read? And it's like, oh, dude, like you have a personal relationship with the people that built your boat. And now like when there's any type of issues, it's not like you guys feel like, oh man, we're getting put out. You're like, no, dude, if you have an issue, we want to hear about it. Please reach out, And so I took my kids to a beach one day, and it was just a friend who his in-laws had a house on the beach. And he's like, hey, we're going to go crabbing tomorrow. Do you want to come? Like, yeah, let's do it. So we went down there with my kids. We went crabbing in a 12-foot aluminum skiff off of the what would it be? The west side of Camano Island. And my kids loved it. They're like, that was so fun. And then we did a crab feed and brought and did a big cookout. And so they're like, we need a boat. And so I was literally on Craigslist looking at 12-foot aluminum skiffs. That's what I was looking at.
That's how it started.
Yeah, that's how it started. And I was like, yeah, I do kind of have the bug to get back on the ocean. That was really fun. The kids loved it. And so we started looking, and then my wife's like, well, our youngest is still a baby. So we should probably, we're going to need a place for her to lay down if we plan on spending much time on the water. I'm like, well, a place to lay down in a bed or in a boat. That just changed the game dramatically,
Big
right?
deal, yeah.
And then this is what she said to me next. She's always saying the boat is my thing. I was like, you're the one that had these 2 requirements that changed the game. And she goes, and you're a father of 3 daughters. You're going to need a bathroom on the boat.
That's right.
And I was like, well, okay. So now I'm looking at boats with a bed and a bathroom, and that's a massive difference.
Big difference.
And I was like, you know what? This is going to be a very expensive endeavor, but I grew up on the water, and I still think about all those times being 5, 6, 7 years old, and all those memories I shared with my dad going up the inside passage and fishing and throwing anchor and camping in these little bays and stuff. And I was like, this is something that I think I want to give my kids.
Yeah.
And
You're a good dad.
Yeah, dude. And we started looking, and I don't even know, like all the different, there's Kingfisher and Duckworth and all these different companies. And I was actually in the process of purchasing a boat with another company. And me and Jenny were reading forums because we're like, dude, we're new to this. Let's see like what the community has to say about different boats. And we were reading some forum, and it's like, if you want top of the line boat, if you want the best boat that your money can buy, you need to be looking at Wooldridge. And I was like, man, I haven't even heard of Wooldridge, because we were going to like Cabela's or, Bass Pro Shop.
Sure. Yeah.
Or there's some big boat dealers like Three Rivers Marine and stuff that carry an array of different boats.
That's right.
But you guys only build custom boats to order. So if we're going and looking at all these different boats, we're not going to come across a Wooldridge.
Right.
And then so we Googled it, and then there's a website that's your website that and correct me if I'm wrong, whenever a Wooldridge sells, you want to know the new owner, correct? So you assist the selling process?
That's the ideal way to go. Yeah, we do have some dealers that are going to buy a more basic boat, smaller jet boats and whatnot. And a lot of times I get to meet them, who they're selling the boat to also. But anything custom or boats like that you have, absolutely we get to work with them through the build and get to know exactly what they're after, because it's not, selling a boat is not the goal. The goal is that they get the right one. They get the right boat. The goal is that in 5 years, they call and say, I wouldn't change anything from the beginning. You heard how we were going to use it, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
Because we've all been to whether it's a motorcycle shop or a car lot where someone's just trying to move product, and that's not the right thing, because you could potentially put someone in danger over their head if you just are trying to sell them something versus hearing exactly what they're trying to use it for and who's going with them, and hopefully get them in the right product.
And I won't say who we were working with, because I don't need to cast stones at anyone, but we started to feel like you're not really looking to meet our needs. You're just looking to make a sale.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was part of the reason that we started to kind of, the intuition that this isn't necessarily about us. It's about selling a boat. Mm-hmm. I didn't like how that felt.
Yeah.
So then I came across your website and saw your used boats that are for sale. And it was actually Larry that was selling his Wooldridge because of health issues.
That's right.
He loved the boat. Yes. And as soon as I met him, I realized like, I actually almost felt bad, because he's like, man, this boat is my passion. This is, I've been planning on doing this as retirement for a long time.
It was like brand new.
Yeah. And he's like, but due to health issues, I boating doesn't look like it's part of my future. And so that's why he put it up for sale. Yeah. And what was bizarre, it was the exact model that we were looking for.
No way.
We knew we needed a bathroom. I wanted a table, because the kids, like, they only fish for so long. Then they want to draw and do art projects and all that stuff, right? But we wanted the forward-facing bench seat that could then also turn into the table. That's right. With the table that would go down and turn into the bed. Yep. Like everything that we had kind of kicked around after looking at all these different boats, that one was it. Yeah. And so we reached out to him and made it happen, and then got in contact with you. And just thank God. You know what I mean? Like it's been a really cool process seeing how, it started, we wanted a 12-foot aluminum skiff off Craigslist. And then we bought this magnificent machine. But then to have a personal relationship with the person that built it. It's just cool, man.
It's the best part for me. It's the best part.
And do you guys sell typically like up and down the West Coast, or is it are your boats everywhere now?
There are a lot of places. I mean, the Pacific Northwest and Alaska and Canada are by far our biggest market for sure. But yeah, I have a dealer in Montana and Idaho, and we've got dealers numerous up in Alaska, and I have a dealer that takes boats to Russia. I don't know how much that's going to happen anymore, but yeah. So they're all around, and so, but yeah, we have boats, and there's a boat on the board out here going to Chile, and we've built a bunch of boats for Chile and South America, and there's some great fly fishing and places there, and King of Tonga has a boat. And they're all around, but yeah, Northwest and Alaska is a huge deal.
Okay.
Wyoming, Montana, lots of fish, wildlife, and parks, and those type of boats. Game warden.
Yeah, and one of the things that I wanted to ask you was like, just with the cost of materials and the gas prices going up, I was wondering how that has affected the boat market. But as soon as I walked in here, you showed me the board that has all the orders in, and it seems like the boat market is still doing well, huh?
Boat market's doing well. Yeah, the costs of things is really crazy for sure. Aluminum and just getting supplies and even glass and but you plan and strategize and try to prepare and have the right stuff on hand, whether it's pre-ordering more aluminum or engines or whatever it is, or thinking about different models that you might build or focus on that fit best with what's happening out there, more fuel efficient blue collar jet boats or whatever it might be. But because my grandfather didn't even graduate high school, and look what he did. My dad graduated high school and took some technical classes after. I graduated high school, did a little bit of community college. I don't have any special education. I'm not, technically I'm throwing it over my head, but the goodness of God has given us grace to do what we need to do, there's a grace to do it. And so there's also been favor over us in crazy times back when there was a gas crisis, in the 80s, early 80s, where, people could only buy 5 gallons of gas a day. And
or based on your license plate,
where there was an odd number, an even number, which day you could buy fuel. Who's going to buy boats at that time? What are you going to do? And my grandfather said, God told him we'd be busy building the commercial boats. And dude, we got more overwhelmed with commercial boats than you ever could imagine, barely any recreational boats. And we still worked hard and did it. And we just kept getting the sales. And then when gas came back around, man, more recreational boats came. So yes, we plan and we go for it, but there's not some special wisdom that I can tout myself, that I have or that we have that gets you through some of these things, though you definitely plan and strategize. But we've just had favor in all the ups and downs of life and
That's
over
awesome.
the last 100+ years.
Well, and I think like it kind of goes back to what we were saying. Like it's easy to like, oh, the sky is falling. You know what I mean? But if you just keep chugging along and keep doing what you need to do, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be okay. If
you're succeeding, you still take a step forward. If nothing's changing, you still take a step forward. If things are failing around you, you still take a step forward. Mm-hmm. You still should be moving forward.
Yeah.
You just keep going. Nothing's going to get better if you stop.
Yeah.
If you're afraid and you turn around. It's one of the things we live by here. It's part of like what we stand on is we don't make decisions based on fear. I tell the guys,
imagine that.
That's right.
Like what a statement.
Guys, we're not going to make some split. You're not going to see me come in one day all bloodshot eyes because I was up all night and afraid of a news article that came out. We're going to change everything just out of some fear. No, let's think about it. What's reality? We got this. It's not going to be based off of fear. That's for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think I was telling you guys when we were talking right before we started recording, but it's like filling my boat up 2 years ago was $350, and now it's
my goodness,
$1,300 probably.
Yeah,
and so that is going to impact how much my family, how much time we can spend on the boat this summer.
Yes,
and knowing that that's going to impact us, I was curious, like, is that going to impact people wanting to even purchase boats to start with?
It's gonna have to. For sure. It's definitely going to. So that's where. you're always looking at what's an economical choice for a guy, instead of telling some guy he's got to have the most horsepower and speed. I'm going to be like, man, if you got to be out there and you want to be out there, let's try to get you let's go with a lighter boat, less horsepower. Well, let's get you so you can go do this.
Okay.
You want to have those conversations for sure.
Because, dude, when my boat is at full throttle, it has that gas burning thing on the screen. It says 29 gallons an hour.
Well, I have a feeling, Greg, that you might not know how to control the throttle, bring it back down a little bit. You seem like one of those guys that not necessarily looking for the economic way to run it. You're kind of just like go.
Well, and a lot of times, like when we're running out of Bellingham Bay, the conditions are going to dictate how fast you go.
Yeah.
And it gets choppy up there. Like, I swear, year round, it's like that bay is cursed.
Yeah.
And so you're running as fast as you can run based on the conditions.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot in the last couple of years. And so, when it's like glass out, it's just like, it's calling you.
It is. It is. I get it, man. I'm the same way. I'm a speed junkie for sure.
Man, I went out of Bellingham Bay one morning. And there was a small craft advisory warning.
Okay.
But I was like, hey, you know what? We can go as slow as we need to go. And if it gets too bad, we can just always turn around, So I wasn't concerned because I've taken that boat and I feel like I've pushed its limits. You'd probably be like, dude, be serious. You're fine. But man, we were hitting like, I don't know, 10, 15 foot rollers where we come to the top of this thing. And then it felt like we were going straight down and the whole cabin was underwater. All the windshields were like, all I would see is green because it's completely pointing straight down. And then we'd pop back up and I started getting nervous and I was like, dude, I got my kids on the boat and I see where this is going. And so it started getting worse and worse and worse. And now I'm to the point where I'm like, I need to turn around right now, but you don't want to take one of these rollers broadside.
Tricky timing.
Yeah.
Right there.
So I was like, I need to time this perfectly. And then, you can just crank the engines in the opposite direction to just turn a perfect circle.
That's right.
And I'm waiting and I'm a nervous wreck, dude. And I didn't let the kids know this. I didn't even begin to, like you said, I'm not making any decisions based on fear.
Yeah.
Because courage is contagious. Fear is contagious.
Absolutely.
Like whatever emotion you're going to project on your family, they're going to start feeling that.
Yeah.
So to this day, I haven't even said like, you know what? We were probably all close to dying out there. Right. But, man, I finally saw an opening where it looked like the next roller was far enough away to just turn around real quick and then start heading back to the bay. And I had to head back in a trajectory that wasn't taking us where we needed to go. It was kind of taking us where we had to go until I got real close to shore and then could just kind of follow the coastline back to Bellingham Bay. But it's like, dude, the ocean is unforgiving.
It's unforgiving. But you did the right thing and you learned something too. That wasn't a failure.
Yeah, for sure.
And based off of, you came through it successfully, probably a lot to just due to how you are and past experiences and military and everything else you've done, Think, don't lose your head, do the right thing. The boat's probably capable of more than I can imagine, but yet look who we've got on board. And you're made for it, man. You did a good job.
Well, and that's one of the big things. And it doesn't matter if it's out on the water or military operations or especially mountaineering. You need to know when to say, hey, it's time to call this.
That's right.
Because if you let your ego and get involved in that, it's like, no, you know what? We're good. I think I can do this. And let's be honest, I've pushed myself pretty far past what's reasonable. But when your family's in that boat with you, it's a very different what is reasonable.
That's right.
And so, but I look back on that and it's like, there's no reason to push it. No. So if there's a small craft advisory in place, we can go boating next weekend.
That's right.
And you want to know something that was funny is as we were coming back into harbor, we saw another boat. I don't remember what manufacturer was, but it was a very similar boat to ours, like an offshore pilot house zipping out. And I was like, oh, he thinks it's good, you know, and through the process of, you know, getting back into the harbor and backing the trailer down and getting everything settled and getting the boat hooked up, as we were leaving, we saw him coming back into the harbor too. And I was like, all right, he drew the same conclusion.
All right. All right. We're in good company.
So man, at what point, one thing I wanted to ask you is, cause like my dad, he started commercial fishing and then he started the lodge up in Alaska where he was being a guide now.
Yeah.
And he had asked me, hey, do you want to take over this business? Is this something you're interested in? And at the time it's like, no, I just want to be a ranger. I want to go in the military. Mm-hmm. And I ended up doing that for the next decade. And he ended up selling the business while I was in the military. And I look back on that to this day and wonder, man, what would my life have been if I'd said, yeah, Dad, I'll take over this and make it a family business. But at the same time, each man has to chase his own passion and his own dreams, right?
That's right.
At what age did you know, like, hey, taking the reins of this family business is what makes sense for me, and this is what I'm going to pursue?
It's multifaceted, I guess. I was never, ever pressured like, hey, this is you someday. You're going to do this, you know. I have a sister and myself, you know, so it kind of seems like that pressure could be real, but it wasn't. It was like, we'll support you in what dreams you want to do. So I didn't feel that. If you want to go to college and learn something specific, we'll help you, you know.
You had good parents, man.
Yeah, I'm grateful. You know, I had great grandparents and great parents. And I'm super blessed and thankful for the way they raised and taught me and hard work and that type of deal. So I never felt the pressure to do that. I went to community college and did well. I think I was even on the honor roll, which is shocking, but maybe there were easy classes or something like that, you know, art and nature study, who knows? But anyhow, and then I worked through the summer and I started working at the boat shop when I was 15 part-time. As a family member, you can start earlier than someone just coming off the street. So because I was a member of the family, I could technically work here. Now, that didn't mean I had power tools or welders. They weren't letting me do any of that.
I've actually heard my 12-year-old daughter can be an employee of my gym.
There you go. It's true.
Tax write-off.
That's right. So I was sweeping parking lots and vacuuming and that type of stuff. So, and so I'd even in high school, I'd go to school till, I don't know, like 2:00. Then I'd get in my car and drive to the boat shop and work for an hour and a half till they closed at 4:00. And then on weekends I would work. And, anyhow, I went to college and then that summer I worked, and that was the first time I really worked full time here. And I just loved working with my hands and making things. I just loved it. Mm-hmm. So at that point, it wasn't about, in my mind, like taking over the business or anything like that. I was like welding, building, fabbing. This is great. I love it. Because they're at that age, they were just starting to let me, whatever it was, 19 or 20, starting to let me, like, I was playing with tools and doing all that. I mean, I got to play with tools a little sooner than that. So, and then when did it become more of a reality of taking over? And I still don't even see it that way at times, because I'm the guy who took over. It feels like, you know, I'm real big on this as a team endeavor. You know, if it was just me here taking over, there'd be nothing. Yeah. But doing it with the right team. And so working with the guys who mentored me, who'd been here a long time. And then as I was coming of age and got involved with hiring crew my age or younger and helping mentor them while I'm being mentored, and seeing it build as a team and a community and the hard work it takes to do things with people. That's more when I think it meant more to me to see the bigger picture and how these people, how it affected their lives, being able to work for somewhere, you know, if we could do a great job and provide a good environment for people. And that's when it changed more to like excitement about, Dad, what do you need me to do? What can I take off your plate? How can I get you out of here to go put your feet up? Which he still doesn't do. He's not retired, but he's not here full time, but he still likes to come down and help out with this or that. But
yeah, for sure.
Kind of makes me do the hard stuff, hard decisions, which is great. Yes. You need to. And I'm grateful for that. I could take that off his plate.
Man, one thing you said that I think is kind of lost amongst a lot of our youth specifically is you're like, man, I liked building things with my hands.
Yeah.
Like it felt good. And I've never had any professional setting where it's fabricating or building stuff. But man, just doing like little projects around the house, like building, like I built a dog kennel underneath our stairs, right? So I had to cut out and then make a little door, but I did it very meticulous and like a bunch of different angles and have to walk back out to the chop saw 50 times you know, and by the time it's done, I look at that thing and it's like, dude, this is the Taj Mahal of dog kennels.
That's right.
And it was an idea 3 days ago and now it's done. There's just something that feels good about that.
There is, man.
You know? And I feel like, you know, like I had my buddy Toby Folk has been on the podcast quite a bit. He's a commercial electrician. And he's like, man, like a lot of the next generation, not only do they not know how to do stuff with their hands, but it's like, it's almost like they're not interested in it. And I think it's because everybody wants to be a programmer or they want to graduate college and start making $150,000 a year.
Yeah.
But it's like most of the trades, you start at the bottom. You start in an apprenticeship.
Yeah. And
you work your way up. And then once you make it, it is a very viable, successful career.
Yeah.
You know? But I feel like there's an ebb and flow to that. I don't know. You would obviously know more than me. Is that something that you see in this industry?
Yeah, you definitely do. And I think it's super important to whatever you do with your career to focus still on skills with your hands, with knowledge based off, because, you know, we all hope things get better and all this, but if something hits a fan or whatever, what skill set do you have that contributes to your family and society? Yeah. Can you provide this? Can you grow something? What can you create shelter? What can you do? So I think skills, no matter what, are a great thing to do, to be able to have under your belt. But there are those kids out there that have realized they don't want to sit behind a computer. There are some great programs now that are going into the shop classes. One's called Core Plus. A gal named Tori there does a good job, but that basically they're trying to unite shop teachers and shop classes with fabrication places, whether it's a place like us, Wooldridge Boats, whether it's Boeing in the past would have been a big one, Kenworth trucks or other boat manufacturers, or now in town you got SpaceX or something like that. Mm-hmm. So there is a much larger focus, and they're seeing it super imperative if the trades are going to continue. If we're going to keep being able to build things and understand that you have to have classes that teach kids this and encourage them and give them a direct path to go right out of school. We've hired a guy right out of high school because I had a relationship with the shop class teacher and got to meet him and do mock interviews with this kid before he graduated. And I might be doing some more next month at a local high school with a shop teacher. And then just helping guide them and give them a vision. It's not just like, oh, shop class is making a bird cage or bird feeder or whatever it is. Like, no, we can weld a boat, or we can do this, and then I can actually go do this thing.
Like real life skills that you can build a career off of.
Yeah, that's right.
Man, that's powerful.
Yeah.
So you said like there was never a moment when it's like, okay, you're in charge now. But as it started to morph where you were taking more and more responsibility, how old would you say you were when it was like, oh shit, the buck stops with me?
For sure, probably in the last 10 years, for sure, I've seen that transition.
Okay.
Pretty big.
I think we're the same age, right? 41?
43.
43. Okay. Yeah. Oh, you're way older than me.
Super old, man. You'll never be as old as I am.
So yeah, like, I mean, when you think about that, so, you know, early 30s, you were kind of running the show, right? And I think about this from my perspective, like growing up in the military and law enforcement. A lot of people get cast into leadership positions pretty early.
Yeah. Well, especially in law or in military.
Yeah. Like I look back, like I was a team leader leading patrols in Afghanistan at 21 with, 5 or 6 men under me. It's like, dude, I look back on that now, 21-year-old, it's a child.
Yeah.
But, man, I still think like being early 30s, running a business, having employees that like they need to rely on you to feed their families. Like, and I always say this, leadership is a burden.
Yeah.
It's rewarding, but it's also a burden. And what was that like being, you know, like you said, like I don't look at myself as the leader. This is a team.
Yeah.
Which I think is a great perspective. But
you still have to lead the team.
That's what I'm saying.
You don't need you don't need to have a title to be a leader. A leader is someone who has influence.
Yep.
Okay. So there could be someone out there who might be the newest guy that I have, but he can be a leader just by his actions, how he comes into play. I see that all the time. Has no title, doing the bottom of the barrel stuff, but you know what? He's doing it with excellence and better than anyone else who's done it before him recently, right? And so that guy right there is leading, though he doesn't have a title, and maybe the jobs he's doing yet, someone might not perceive it that way, but you can tell already that he's a leader. He has influence. Now there's bad leaders. Hitler was a bad leader. He had a lot of influence. So a leader is just someone who has influence. If you're a father, you're automatically a leader. Sorry to tell you, but you're a leader.
Yeah.
You've got influence over someone. There's someone you're leading. So the titles can be good. Titles can be bad, because sometimes a title can just go to somebody's head and they think that the title is why they're a leader, when in reality it's your character.
Now, it's funny
and what you do.
It's funny you say that, because when I was a police officer, anytime I would interact with someone, either a traffic stop or even like if we're dispatched, like I would never introduce myself as Officer Anderson, because I'm like, ugh. Like that title was given to me by the state of Washington, but it really doesn't mean shit of who I am as a man. So I would always say, hey, my name is Greg, just to make it like, hey, I'm just a person like you're a person, and I work for whatever department, you know?
Yep.
And I think that's important, because like just like you said, title doesn't mean anything. And as soon as people start to think that the title does mean something, I think you're starting to kind of get away from reality. Yeah.
Well, the burden you carry as a leader, or especially one who's got a title, is, you know, there's the what you're putting out is what people will pick up. You know, you could be having a quote unquote tough day or whatever, but you know what? What do you want the guy next to you? And probably you could relate to this, and I could not, but I think about it like a couple guys together in a foxhole or something. How do you want him to respond when stuff's really crappy? You know, even if inside he's scared, you know, you're both scared, but he's like, we got this. It's not going to be a problem. Let's stay focused. You know, I look at that sometimes with fires that come up or things that happen every day. There's always something, whether it's a personality thing or really something that's you're trying to solve with building something or this or that. It's like, we got this, guys. What's the perspective? Perspective is the key to life. You know, I always think if there's something hard, whether you go back to Shackleton or something like that, or NIMS, or doing something hard for me, and this is a very, very clear one for me. There was a young man, younger than both you and I, who came here one day and visited us, and he was a vet from Afghanistan, and he was missing a leg and an arm, and that guy's perspective on life was solid positivity. He's like, I'd do it all again. You know, you thank him. And I try to thank anyone in that who served our country, and thank you, Greg, for sure. Appreciate it. But that guy, he's like, I'd do it all over again. And watching him, the struggle, just getting in and out of his truck and doing things. But his perspective was amazing. There ain't nothing I can go through. There ain't nothing that puts me, that I should be bumming down on myself when I think about that young man, you know? So perspective is the key to life. So you can get bound up in the weeds sometimes in a day-to-day problem or a personality thing. And like, you know what? Step back for a second, throw yourself up on a building, look down at this street from that perspective, and realize, oh man, this ain't at all what you can drum it up to be. So as a leader, it's kind of our role to help with that perspective, to help guys, whether it's just leading or saying something or encouraging someone. That's the real role that you have to come to and tell yourself every day. You don't want to listen to your thoughts. You want to speak to yourself. What comes out of your mouth is sometimes way more powerful. It can override and be more powerful than the negative thoughts you're telling yourself in your head. It's important to say, no, I've got this out loud. You know, we can do it. It's not a big deal. You're made for this. You've got this, Greg. You're such a great dad. You're such a great leader. Look what you're doing out there. Look at the lives that you're changing. That's amazing. You know, speak to yourself that way too. Your thoughts will deceive you at times.
Man. Yeah. I mean, one thing you just said that you said, I may not be able to like understand the foxhole analogy as much as I could, right?
I can't.
But here's the reality of it is it can be in a foxhole in Afghanistan, or it can be in Seattle, Washington, welding a boat.
Yeah.
Man, leadership is leadership. All the principles, the way you apply it, the way you treat people, the perspectives. Man, I was just going to say, like, when you're done building boats, you probably, it sounds like you're going to be giving Jocko a run for his money. You can write a leadership book, man, because like, this is a real thing though. It's like everybody goes to like, oh, a Navy SEAL who commanded people in war. And that's cool, right? And I'm not saying anything negative about that. But I guarantee you there's just as many and powerful leadership lessons. I can get the vibe just talking to you right here that happen in your shop that are just as powerful, just as impactful, just as meaningful, and just as real, you know?
Well, I don't got it figured out, man. And I need to renew my mind every day and get myself in the right spot and to have my conversation with myself on the daily.
Yeah.
You know, but the point is I'm not going to stop. We're not going to end. We're going to keep going forward. And when there's a hiccup, we're going to face it. Yeah. We're going to figure out the problem. I love new problems. Let's friggin' solve them. I don't like the same problem over and over. Somebody's doing something stupid, but let's bring on the new problems. And if you're bringing me a problem, bring a solution. The guys all know that, at least your version, whether I pick it or not, you know, and shoot, it might be better than my solution, but let's deal with them and think of how we can solve it. And I got a great team. Again, the guys out there, I couldn't say enough great things about each one of them. If I had the time, I'd say something about every one of them.
How many guys do you have on your crew?
We're about 20 folks, you know.
No, and one thing that you just said that actually, in my opinion, exemplifies even more of a powerful leadership capability is like, I don't have it all figured out. Right?
Oh, yeah, and for sure.
And one of the most powerful things, I think I've told the story on the podcast before, but I met a red belt in jiu-jitsu. That's a grandmaster, and there's not very many of them. And I've only met one. And one thing he told me is
how many are there in like the U.S. or something?
Oh, I don't even know. You could probably count them on your hands though,
in
the U.S.
Crazy. That's crazy.
And I was a brown belt at the time, but coming up on black belt. And one of the things he told me, he goes, once you get a black belt, everyone's going to be looking to you as a leader. And he goes, the most important thing that you can say to your team as a leader is, I don't know.
Yeah.
He goes, because if you ever start to become that black belt that starts to pretend, he goes, people see through that because it's jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is an ocean. It's endless. And I don't care how many years you've been doing it. There's still a lot that you will never know. And he's like, you have to own that and make sure that you're upfront with your people about that. I don't know is the most powerful thing you can say as a black belt. And it's like, hey, leadership is leadership. Is it on the jiu-jitsu mats or is it welding boats?
That's right.
But saying, I don't know, that actually empowers your people because it makes them trust you. You know, if you're the guy that always has the answers, then if you always have the answers, you're kind of full of shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
But one thing that I will say about leadership and being willing to say, I don't know, you know, the opposite side of that, for a long time, I felt like I had imposter syndrome. You know, when people would look to me for an answer because, oh, this dude was an Army Ranger, or this dude is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And people would look to me for answers. I always felt kind of uncomfortable with that because it's like, dude, I don't know shit. I'm just a guy. Like being a ranger is just something I went and did.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me special. Same thing with jiu-jitsu. It's just something I went and did. It doesn't make me special. But I would say it's not until the last couple of years that I've grown into a man that is comfortable sharing my perspectives. And not that I'm necessarily giving guidance, but just like we're doing right now, we're sitting here, we're talking, and I've gotten enough positive feedback where conversations like this positively impact other people. And I will inevitably get emails. They say, man, I listened to that Grant Wooldridge guy. And, you know, I was going through this at the time and I thought about how he said perspective is everything. And dude, I'm doing a lot better now. That person's out there that's going to hear this. And when you hear that story enough, that's when you realize, oh, you know what? Stepping up to the plate and sharing your perspective there is validity to that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of men grow into that, or people in general, probably around our age, into our 40s, where we've been doing something long enough to know, like, okay, there is a correct way to do it. And in my experience, it is this.
That's right. And a lot of things that you stand by and that I stand by, and that I may say here, don't think it's something that I invented or came up with myself. It's who do you choose to follow? Who do you see doing something right? Who's gone a little bit further in that area of life than you? And you want to do it well. Well, you follow their example. If you wanted to go climb a peak, well, you're going to watch what Nims is doing.
Yep.
If you want to have a successful marriage, you're going to go find the guy who's been married to his wife for 80 years and ask him some questions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're going to go find the person who still dates his daughters when they're 30 years old and they want to come date their dad. You want to be a good dad, you're going to go talk to that guy. You know, so it's and then you're going to take that on as your own, and then you're going to modify it to fit your life, and then you're going to tell the next guy, because you want them to do well too. We're here to not just for ourselves, everyone around us, you know? Yeah. So if I can share something that's helped me, well, it ain't because I created it, man. It's because I followed somebody I saw who I wanted to be like,
yeah.
You know?
No, I love this conversation, because you're saying a lot of things that are like, I'm in pure alignment with. And that's one thing I always tell people, because people like throw around the term alpha male, right? And it's like, dude, you're an alpha male, or I'm an alpha male. And it's like, sometimes I'm an alpha male. I said, but there's plenty of times when I don't want to be a leader. I'm happy being a follower.
Yeah.
Because the right person is making the calls. The right person is guiding me. Just like you said, you want to learn how to have a successful marriage. Talk to the guy that's been married for 80 years, right? Go have a conversation with someone that is more proficient in something than you are. And it's actually funny, because I'm flying out tomorrow morning to go to a wedding, and he was my team leader when I was in Ramadi in 2004. Wow. And to this day, if that guy called me and said, hey, I need you here at this time, and this is what we're doing, I'd be like, roger that. See you then. And he is so tactically sound, and he's one of the most amazing men I've ever worked for, that if I'm in the same room with him, I'm following his lead, and I'm comfortable with that.
So what are the top 1 or 2 non-negotiables this guy lives by, if you were to like try to put it on paper or to tell or explain it to me, that make him that way to you?
He lives, like when we were in Ramadi, he was fearless, but never reckless. And there's a fine line.
Sure.
Because in combat, you can get reckless, and reckless will cost you everything. And so he never showed any fear, and he doesn't have fear in his heart. And it's exactly what you just said. We don't make decisions out of fear.
Yeah.
You know? And that was this guy. He was always fearless, but never reckless. But he also was like, he was one of the hardest men I've ever met, and he's probably killed more people than cancer, but he was compassionate too, extremely compassionate. Like, he is one of the most capable men you will ever meet. And he was in special operations units that we're not even supposed to talk about. And then I got to work for this guy, and he was like a god. I was like this young ranger. I was like, oh, this guy came out of the unit, you know? And like at the time, it was like, wow. But that guy took care of me. And it was interesting because our relationship started as a mentorship. He was my boss, and he took care of me when we were going through some bad things. And now I'm flying out, and I'm going to be his best man in his wedding.
Oh, man.
And it's cool.
What an honor.
Yeah. And it's like, wow, like I have earned this guy's respect. And for a long time, I looked at him as a mentor. I didn't look at him as a friend. But as the years go on and we stay in touch, and the war is 20 years behind us now, and then we actually took him out on my Wooldridge boat last summer.
That's great.
And yeah, we went out under deception and took him and his fiance out fishing, and it was just fun. And here a year later, now I'm going down to be his best man. But my whole point of even going off on that tangent is, it's like, if I'm in the room with him, he's in charge. And I'm okay with that. I like that.
Yeah.
And so I think leadership is very fluid. If you're best suited, like if you and I got stranded on a beach somewhere and you said, hey, Greg, check it out. We're going to build a boat and we're going to get off this island. And you need to cut this tree down, and this is the lumber dimensions we need. It's like, roger that. Grant is 100% in charge of this operation, and I'm going to try and be your alpha team leader. Meaning, In the Ranger Regiment, you got your squad leader and then you got your alpha team leader. That's the right-hand man. How can I facilitate the mission the best way that I can? And I think being a good alpha team leader is something that gets lost because everybody wants the glory of being the person in charge, but you might be better suited being the alpha team leader.
Yeah.
And it's exactly like you said, it's cool seeing all these parallels because my leadership experience is military and law enforcement. But you're saying like, hey, I've got a new guy that has hardly any experience building boats, but he has leadership. He has leadership capabilities, and I see it from day one. It's powerful shit, man.
Well, it's not what he's saying to anybody. He don't even know it. It's just how he is, right? Yeah. And I could say that about multiple people. It's how they work, their example, the way they keep their mindset, what they say about others when others aren't around. You know, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Well, and bro, I think I already mentioned it, but I had a conversation with three of your crew guys for 10 minutes before we started recording.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you can tell so much about the culture that's a company or an agency or an organization. And just in those 10 minutes with your guys, I was like, oh, the culture here is awesome. Those are good people. They're excited to be here. They have good energy. Everybody came up, shook my hand. And it's like, I talk about it like, are you familiar with the company First Form?
Yeah.
Okay. So Andy Frisella. Yeah. I became buddies with the Frisella brothers as a result of the video. And which is crazy because like those dudes are like, oh, they're the Frisella brothers, right? But when I went down to First Form and met them and did his podcast, every single person at First Form is very similar vibe to your guys.
Oh,
they're happy to be there. They shake your hand. They look you in the eye and you have an authentic conversation. It's not like there's no fakeness. There's no bullshit going on.
Yeah.
And I mean, dude, 10 minutes with your crew. I literally said, the Wooldridge crew needs to come up and we need to barbecue at my beach this summer, you know, and that's going to happen. That's real.
That's awesome.
But it's just cool because like culture and all that shit gets set. That's at the top.
Yeah.
And so like, it's cool to see that in a world where most agencies or most people, when they go to work, it's like, and you're sitting around the lunchroom and everybody's bitching about stuff. And I saw that with both the agencies I worked for. And it's like, man, what are we doing? This is your life.
Yeah.
And everybody's in this like low vibration and they're miserable. And it's like, not here, man. Not in these walls. I can already feel it. Not to say like you don't have some shitty people come through here or problems arise. Like that's life, right?
Yeah, it's life, man.
But man, the way you're running this is extremely apparent to me. Coming in from the outside, like we know each other, but we don't know each other well.
Yeah.
And seeing this firsthand, it's cool, man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, props to each one of those guys too, because they're the type, each one of those, as many here, they can really care about culture and people and saying and doing the right thing. And if there's something said that's uncomfortable or wrong, they're the ones that want to try to like help versus jumping on some negative bandwagon. All three of those guys are great guys, as are many. And you have great conversations with a ton of the folks that work here. I'm very thankful for them.
No, that's cool. I look forward to our Wooldridge barbecue.
That sounds good, man. That sounds good.
One thing I wanted to ask you about was what was it like running a big business when the pandemic hit? Did you guys have to shut down? We can't talk about that on the air.
No, we didn't. I mean, there's so much unknowns, you know, you're like, what does all this mean? You know, is everything going to just crash and burn? You know, like who's going to buy a boat? They say the world's ending, you know, they say your face is going to melt off. Your eyeballs are going to fall out.
Yeah. The images of the people just laying dead in the streets.
There's not enough holes in the ground to bury all the bodies, you know, and you're just like, oh God, it's coming here, you know?
Isn't that crazy though? At the time it felt real.
It did.
Because I mean, I guess we just didn't have a reason to have that level of distrust in our own media and our own government.
That's right. Well, yeah. But at that moment's when the rubber met the road for what came out of our mouths. There was some, right off the gate, there was some, everyone standing and saying, hey guys, I'm not going to base any decisions off of fear. And here's what we do know. Here's the good things that we know. I know that this is what's being said out there, but there's always something good. Who's got something good? You got something good over there? Raise your hand. What's good right now?
Yeah.
Okay. And then as far as, no, we didn't have to shut down. We fortunately had some contracts and some different things that allowed us to fall under the window of essential, quote unquote. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there were some military boats we were doing and some fire department rescue boats. And so those things allowed us to stay, quote unquote, essential. But we weren't closing down anyways.
Yeah.
So, and I wasn't going to hand off some mandate to them that I thought was wrong. So
yes, I mean, you got, like you said, all of your crew, they have their own mouths to feed, their own mortgages to pay, you know?
We were going to figure it out. And we did. It was tough because, you know, if someone got sick or thought they had COVID or something, you're doing this balancing act, but we kept going. And the flip side is, you know, for a month or two, you're wondering, you know, is everything crashing and burning? And then what you realize is the recreation market just went bonkers, you know? So everybody wanted a cabin in the woods. They wanted a recreational camping trailer. They wanted a dirt bike, a quad, a boat, whatever. And it just went freaking crazy. So, and it's still seeming that way. We've always been busy. We're super blessed and thankful that we've been busy. We always have work to do. We don't keep all our eggs in one basket as far as the boats and styles and markets that we can reach. But yeah, we can't build boats fast enough for all the people who want to play and say, you know what, I don't want a vacation at Disneyland and Great Wolf Lodge. I want to be out in the wild and really having a true experience with my family. And a boat's one of the ways you can do that.
Sure.
So that's what's made things kind of crazy.
And, you know, that actually doesn't surprise me because there's something you get touched on a primal level when you do those things. And you do go out in the ocean or out in the woods. And like, there's so many in a world that's just really tech driven and everybody's on Instagram and looking at their phone. There's still a lot of people out there that are like your Cam Hanes out running through the mountains and hunting elk and stuff. And people see that and they're like, I could do that.
Yeah.
You know? And I think a lot of people are trying to almost get reacquainted with nature.
Yeah.
And you're facilitating that to a certain extent, you know?
Yeah. I hope we can give you a tool that can get you further than you've gone before out there. And you can be the hero of your family and go have a great time and catch fish and create memories and experiences and do it safely. And that's the excitement we get when someone a few weeks after they have a boat sends us a photo of like the smiling kid and, oh my gosh, my nephew just caught his first halibut. Look at this river we ran up, but this great. Man, I'm so stoked. I go to share it with the crew guys. I print out a picture. Look what Joe said. Look who he got out fishing. He got to take his terminally ill brother out and look what the experience they got to see. You know, whatever it is. That's when things are awesome because we see as much as I possibly can when there's a customer here or we get that feedback. I try to let the guys meet that person or see something that they've done so they can see what this boat is going to be a part of this person's story. And here's what the story is going to be like. And here's who they plan to use this thing with. And
yeah, I noticed in the lobby, there's a bunch of photographs of people out using your boats.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I need to send Grant a really good family picture.
Come on. Where's that?
I got 1 million of them. So
now you've been good at documenting some of the cool adventures you've done with your family. And I've seen some of that on your social media and it's awesome. And you're a great example to other families out there of what it means to work hard, set great examples for family, friends, business, and have a good time and be a good dad of girls because I'm that
thank
also.
You.
So.
I appreciate. Yeah, you got more girls than me.
I've got 4 daughters.
Nice.
So we're going to be well taken care of when we're old. You know.
Yeah. Are you guys done?
I just got a male chocolate lab.
Okay. So. that's where you draw the line. Huh?
Yeah, no, I feel super blessed, man. I come home from work and I'll get like hugs and snuggles and love notes hidden in my lunchbox with candy and like I date them regularly. And one of my best friends, he's got 4 sons and he says, yeah, when I come home from work, you know, I've got a patch sheetrock and I get kicked in the balls. So that's the difference. But yeah,
no, it's funny because I always thought I wanted sons, right? And that's because, like, I mean, the things that I like in this world, I thought like I would want to share that with boys. And as a father of all girls, I'm realizing that's like, this world doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you need.
Yeah.
And dude, like my oldest is actually her birthday today. She turns 13 today. And when we're done, we're going to go out and we're going to get dinner, and we got her a couple presents. And it's like, man, I have a 13-year-old, right? And it's like, you always hear about like, oh, like teenage girls. And it's like, dude, I have great relationships with those girls, you know, and it's not always good because that's part of being a parent.
Yeah.
But it's, by and large, I think raising girls was what I was supposed to do.
It's awesome.
You know? And if I could go back, I wouldn't change it a bit.
No.
And the things that I thought like I would want to share with young men, dude, they're into it too. My oldest, my 13-year-old, she is a savage on the mats.
Oh man.
I watch her crush boys that are 2 years older than her regularly. And it's like, dude, people are going to be drawn to what they're going to be drawn to, and watching who my girls are growing into. Yeah. Man, it's so rewarding.
It takes a real man to raise a lady. You know? And we've been chosen, man. We were picked to be their dads, and it's just a blessing. My oldest, she's 12 and she just passed her hunter safety course, and she wanted to do it all on her own. And she loves being outside, and she's a good shot. And she's just, I'm super, super thankful too. 'Cause I wouldn't change it. It's funny because people come up to you. I'm sure this has happened to you. The people come up and say, "Oh man," right in front of your kids. Oh yeah. And they'll say, "Oh, don't you wish you had a boy? Are you going to try for a boy?" And your daughters are watching you. Yeah. You know?
Or I get people saying this all the time. "Oh, I feel sorry for you." Yeah. It's like, I don't feel sorry for myself.
Me neither.
My life's fucking awesome.
It's great. and it's how you respond right then so important, because they're paying attention. And what I always say is like, "Oh no, me and my wife, we planned this. All we wanted was girls. So that's why we had 4. Why would I want a boy?" And they're looking to see what you'd say, because the world tells them that, "Oh no, dad should want a boy." No, man, I wouldn't want it any other way. It's great.
But then going back to, the world gives you what you need, not what you want. Yeah. Like I met 2 little boys that were at my jiu-jitsu academy, and then they became like sons to me. And I'm sure if you follow on Instagram, you see that. Like, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, how are your sons?" or "What are your sons up to?" Because like a lot of people think they are my sons, and it's interesting. Like I've kind of taken them under my wing when they were young, because they didn't have a dad that was like available to them. And man, now they're both grown. They're 17 and 19. So not fully grown, but they're reaching, they're young men now. They're not little kids. And it's like, dude, I got to go on the mountain climbs or the fishing trips with little boys, and get to experience like what mentoring a young man is like. And it's like, they needed that. And I tell their family, because like their grandfather is basically like my father now. I'm very close with his family. And I've realized, like, because they always tells me like, "Thank you for helping raise my grandsons. It means everything to me." And I said, I got just as much out of it, if not more.
Oh man.
Because like mentoring a young boy into becoming a man, it was a powerful thing to get to share with somebody. And it doesn't matter if they're your blood or not.
No, it doesn't.
And I got, just like I was saying, I got a lot of fulfillment out of raising my daughters. And I mean, I'm just getting started. My youngest is still 6, right? So I got a long road ahead of me, but I also got to really impact some other young kids. And in this case, these young boys, and have a lifelong relationship with them too now. And it's like, that's the world. And instead of getting caught up in coulda, shoulda, woulda, like what's right in front of you, and then embracing that. Right. And man, it's cool to see, like through jiu-jitsu, I'm now impacting the community in a very different way that I never thought that I would. Well,
you don't have, Greg, you don't have to be a dad to be a father.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. 100%.
And so you're a brother and a father and a son to so many people that it has no biological connection just because of who you are.
Yep.
Right. You're that person who's encouraging, speaking life, telling someone they can do the hard thing and keep doing it, guiding them, taking them by the hand when they're not sure. And you can see it in their eyes because you were that kid one day or whatever it is. And that's who you are, Greg. And it's obvious the way you carry yourself. And these people and myself, these boys, we're better for knowing you. We're better for having you in our lives, and I'm still just getting to know you, but I know it already. I have seen some of the posts and the boys being up at your property and the things that you've done. And that's amazing, man. And that's so important because there's so many broken families out there that have kids that just need someone to say, you can make it a father figure, even if you can't be there all the time, which we can't, but it's super important. You can think back in your life. I know I can, to just handfuls of times in high school or junior high where there was someone older who came along who just said something positive to you, who lifted you up. And maybe they had no other impact in your life outside of that, but I can remember those times.
The impact.
And you're making those now. And if you're intentional about it, holy moly, how much is that going to touch that person's life for the next 20 years?
No, I'm telling you, man, like I look at everything that I've done in my adult life and what I'm finding now at 41, teaching the kids program at my gym is probably the most fulfilling thing I've done because I have 30 kids on the mat now and they're from a who's who list of different backgrounds and families. And like, they all have their story, right? And there's some kids that really need mentorship. And then there's other kids that come from just families that are as solid as they can be. Right. And like, seems like they have a pretty good grasp on life already at 10. It's like, what the heck, you know?
Wow.
And then everything in between. But I mean, I had a conversation with a little kid yesterday and he doesn't have a father and you can tell he's looking for some type of masculine influence. Mm-hmm. And kudos to his mom, because she's really going out of her way to have him spend a lot of time with me and another one of the coaches. And she understands this.
Yeah.
And she sends me like messages thanking us for just teaching him some things from a masculine influence, because every human being, I don't care if you're a little boy or a little girl, there's a lot to be taken from both a masculine and a feminine influence.
Absolutely.
And you need that in your life.
You need it.
And he's been struggling with some things and having some emotional outbursts. And it was to the point where I was like, I don't know if I can allow this kid to keep training. But we sat down with the other coaches and said, he needs us. Like, it'd be easy to say, like, I don't need members anymore. Like, our gym is almost at capacity. It would be very easy to say, hey, take your $100 a month and go elsewhere.
Yeah.
But he needs this. And we've been working with him. And yesterday, it's almost like, you can see people level up almost in a moment in time.
Yeah.
He did that yesterday.
Wow.
And I pulled him aside and I was like, hey, today was your best day on the mats yet. I said, you had great energy, but you had great jujitsu. You're figuring out how to win, but you're coming into the match with positivity and not like frustration, not anger. And I said, you keep training how you train today. I'll be tying a black belt around your waist one day. I said, it'll be in 15 years because it's a long path. But what you're doing today, that is how the journey is walked. And his mom sent me a text message a couple hours later. She goes, he's beaming at home right now.
Come on.
And dude, like, just telling the story makes me well up a little bit, because it's like, we do have the power to positively impact people. And seeing it happen at the gym has been way more rewarding than I thought it was going to be.
It's awesome.
Like, teaching little kids at first was kind of frustrating, because it's like, dude, half of them don't want to be here. They're just here because their parents told them to be here. But I've learned how to have a command presence, but at the same time, they still respect me. And here's the funny thing, man. Like, you know me well enough to know I don't play the PC game. Like,
I love that.
Yeah. In my gym, I tell it how I think that it is. And if how I believe the world is out of alignment with their parents, then they can take them elsewhere.
That's right.
But like on Monday, we had a competition. And I said, I want to find the hardest worker in the room. And today, the hardest worker in the room is going to get a reward. He's going to get an electric jiu-jitsu t-shirt, or he or she, a couple stickers and a couple patches. And I said, and this is what the drill is going to look like. And it was a physical exercise where they needed to count their reps, right? And I said, there's 35 people working out, so no one's going to be able to count your reps other than you. So not only is this a physical fitness exercise, but it's an integrity exercise too, because the number that you tell me is the number that you got. And I need to be able to rely on what you're telling me. And these are 10-year-olds, right? And I said, with that said, there's a camera up in the corner of the room. if any member of our team questions the number that you told them, we'll just go downstairs and we'll watch the footage together as a team. No big deal. But if you lie to your team, that's the fastest way to get kicked off the team. We need to be able to rely on each other. And I said, at your school, they're probably telling you that everybody's equal. And I said, but you need to know right now, that's a lie.
It's a lie.
That is a lie. Everybody is not equal. There are people in your life that will put an extreme amount of effort into things. And then there will be people in your life that put zero effort into things and everything in between. But what you're going to find is the hardest worker in the room is probably the person that is going to have the most fulfilling life because he knows how to earn things.
It's good.
And dude, like I got pulled aside by some of the parents like, man, that speech was,
man,
you know,
well,
like,
because they've been handing out thanks for coming ribbons to everyone who participates in anything these days. And they're trying to tell you who you are and that you can be anything and you can't.
No, there are some absolutes in this world.
Some absolutes.
And that's okay.
Life ain't fair. It doesn't even out in the end. You know, that's not true. It's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And especially in martial arts, because like I talk about this a lot, and this episode should be about boats, not about jiu-jitsu, but I can't not talk about jiu-jitsu, is that on the mats, you can't be full of shit. There is a pecking order that gets established and everybody kind of knows where they fall in at, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, if I fight that guy, he's going to beat me. But if I fight that guy, I usually beat him. Or this person over here, we're about even. And you just have an idea of where you fit in on the team. And man, it feels good. It feels good to kind of just know where you're at. And I think these little kids are starting to feel that, like they know where they're at. And it actually feels good. And it's okay. Hey, I'm better than this person, but that person's better than me. There's no ego in that. That's just reality.
Well, and they're there because of their hard work.
Yeah.
Right? If you had enough money, and I heard Jesse Itzler say this recently, you could go buy yourself into a nice country club or golf place, but you didn't earn that. If you go and get yourself a red belt in jiu-jitsu, you couldn't buy that.
Yeah,
it's because you earned it.
Yep.
If you go finish an Ultraman or an Ironman, it's because you earned it. You can't buy that medal. You can't buy that. You can only earn it by your hard work. And that's what you're providing for them, which is way better than the fanciest country club membership they could afford someday, or way better than a friggin' nice Lamborghini they could buy. Because anybody who makes money could go buy a Lamborghini. Yeah. It's because they earned it. Not everybody can do that.
No, that's cool, man. Yeah, I tell people all the time, I wouldn't sell my jiu-jitsu black belt for $10 million. Like if I had to wake up tomorrow and start over, it's not for sale. Because over the 20-year process of becoming who I am through jiu-jitsu, it's molded me in a lot of different ways that there's not a dollar figure that could compensate for that. It's really helped me grow into a person that I'm proud of. And that's why I'm so passionate about giving it back to people.
Yeah, that's great.
And bro, and that's what I love about coming down here is seeing like a lot of your principles, the way you treat your employees and the way that you guys kind of like attack things as a team. It's like it can be the mats, it can be Afghanistan, or it can be a boat building warehouse. Like the right energy and the right vibe is what people need right now.
Yeah.
And dude, the world puts you in touch with the right people.
Yeah.
Like we're sitting here and I don't know if it's some master plan or if just like the right energy gets attracted to the right energy, but like this is supposed to happen.
Yeah. And I'm grateful for it. This is awesome. Yeah. And we're all on the mats every day, so to speak.
Yeah.
You're on the mats every day. Who's next to you? Who you doing it with? It can be a struggle, or it can be like, what are we going to learn from it, guys? You can look at it like this is lame, or like, look at the opportunity. We're going to learn how not to do something next time. This is great. Isn't this great? You have to. What are the options you can do? Look at everything crappy and you're just depressed all the time, or be like, there's an opportunity here somewhere.
Well, and one thing that I talk about very often with people is like some of the happiest cultures that I've seen. I mean, I lived in a place called Barikaut, Afghanistan, on the border of Pakistan, out in the middle of nowhere. And we would do missions where people would see us flying in on helicopters and they'd all start running for the hills, right? And then we'd land and through and talking to these people with interpreters. These people said they didn't know that there was such thing as aircrafts. I mean, that's how remote some of these villages are. And they see CH-47s coming in, you know, the big Chinooks with the twin rotors. It's a UFO to these
Scary.
people, right?
Yeah.
And you can see half the people are terrified, and then half the people are like awestruck.
Yeah.
What is this, right? But man, you're out in these like third world war-torn shitholes. You don't see depression. You don't see anxiety. You see people that are grateful and they're loving life.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are we missing here that those people have? They have no money. They don't own anything. They live in a mud hut where 7 members of a family live in a house, literally the size of the room we're in right now. You know, and my middle daughter, she's my sassy pants. And she'll be like, our house is too small. Your friend, the Novaks, who did the podcast, why don't we have a house that looks like theirs? And I said, are you serious right now? You're correct. The Novaks house is bigger and nicer than ours. But you live in a 2,200 square foot house. Your bedroom is as big as any bedroom that I've ever been in. You have your own kitchen. You have a bathroom that you share with your sisters. Like, what are we talking about here? And I'll explain to her about the people in Afghanistan, but they can't. Sometimes perspective can be shared secondhand, but it's most powerful when it's experienced firsthand. And I think a lot of Americans are just out of touch with how good we have it.
They're out of touch with it. And it's important that we try to paint the best picture for our kids. And I've taken on that conversation and perspective that I heard Andy Frisella talk about, I think with you, where his dad, when they were young and they were driving and they'd see a nice car or a nice house, what Andy Frisella's dad would start telling Andy and his brother is like, see that house? See, you know the guy who lives there? One thing I know about the guy who lives there is he's worked really hard. He didn't take too many breaks. He sacrificed time and worked his rear off to get what he got. See that Ferrari? That didn't just show up. You know, isn't that cool car, boys? Yeah, it is cool. But that dude worked his butt off. That guy worked hard for that. That guy special labor into getting to that point. It doesn't just happen, son. That just doesn't happen. You know, if you want to put that on your goal list, fantastic. But I'll tell you what's going to take. It's going to take you starting to work right now. It's going to take you not spending your money on the weekends for this. It's going to take you getting creative. And yeah, I'll help you. I'll help you. But that's what it's going to take.
Yeah. No, I love listening to Andy because he's wild and he gets crazy sometimes.
That's right.
But, and that's him. And that's what I love about him. But also like, man, that dude has been there and done that. You know, when he started his supplement company, it took a decade to make, I think he said he made $58,000 in the first decade. Like, it's just scraping by, but kept grinding, and boom, success story now. You know, and that's reality, you know? And it's like, I don't know, like guys like Conor McGregor or Andy Frisella are like, dude, there is no plan B. It's plan A until I succeed at it.
Yeah.
And that's easy to say, but it's scary to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's scary to do. And I think a lot of people choose comfort over really embracing this path of the unknown, to tell you the truth.
We're all victims of it. That's why you got to surround yourself with people who pull you out of the comfort zone.
For sure.
There's someone who's better at you than something and it's going to push you harder at something. Go hang out with them.
100%. Dude.
I'm into running and stuff, and I want to go run with the guys who can run the steeper mountain faster. And I want to be hurting in pain after following them. That's what I want. I want to go talk to the guy who's owned a manufacturing business and it's very successful. I want to go talk to that guy. I want to follow that guy. Yeah.
No, something I say often is if another jiu-jitsu analogy, but if you're the toughest man in the room, you're in the wrong room.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
Because like to grow, you need to be pushed. And the people that can push you are typically the people that are better than you at whatever the craft or the skill is, you know?
People who will humble you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to go running with Cam Haynes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Should we make that happen?
I'm down with that.
All right. So him and I talk sometimes on Instagram.
Oh, man.
So there's an open line of communication. So
I'm there, man.
And if it absolutely destroys you, it's like, you're welcome.
Oh, I hope so. You got to do hard things. You have to. Where you know more about yourself when you make the choice to put yourself into hard situations. Then when life happens and it's hard, you can tell life, hey, I already made a choice this morning to go wake up a little bit earlier and do something that was hard and uncomfortable. So bring it on, life.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm excited about it, but I know what I know that I can get through hard things, that I make a intentional choice.
Yeah.
So
no, and like learning to deal with that pain will take you so much farther than people that, because what is pain? Pain is a physical response to your body, but it's not the physical response that breaks most people. It's they allow the physical pain to cause emotional anxiety. And I see it in the kids class all the time. I'll make them do drills, and I'll do it with them too, because leadership 101, ask nothing of your men you're not willing to do yourself.
Right.
So I'll be like, hey, everybody circle up. All right, leg raise. Put your feet at 6 inches. We're going to hold for 2 minutes, right? And you see some of the kids start shaking, right? And I'll tell them, I said, you can shake and you can reach muscle failure, and that's fine, but I don't want to hear any whining. And most importantly, I don't want to see weakness in your faces. Like if your muscles reach fatigue, then that's because there's lactic acid buildup. That's biology, right?
Yeah.
But the choice to allow it to make you sad, that's all in your mind. That's mindset.
That's right.
And so you see these little kids just like looking at the ceiling, and you know they're in pain. And one thing I'll always tell them, I'm like, hey, everybody's hurting equally, okay? My muscles hurt as bad as your muscles. That's a guarantee, because we're doing the same exercise. It's how you express it to the world that makes a difference.
That's right.
And dude, it's cool to see, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm going to get you training jiu-jitsu soon.
You have no idea how much I'd love it. I would love it.
Hey, there's some I can put you in touch with some good places down here. So
I live down close to Des Moines, SeaTac area.
Oh, okay. Man, you're commuting north then, huh?
Yeah, it's about 10 minutes to the shop.
Oh, yeah. Des Moines. I was thinking of, I don't know. There's somewhere outside of Tacoma that I was thinking.
No, I'm much further north of
Tacoma.
Okay. Yeah, we're close. But yeah, I'd love my kids to be involved in something like that too. So,
bro, I'm telling you, like kids grow on the mats as much as they can grow in any activity. And again, I'm biased, but man, if your kids aren't doing something physical, you're doing them a disservice.
Yeah.
They need to be using their bodies. Because dude, the mind, body, and spirit, we talk about those things almost like they're separate entities. They're all intertwined, man.
Yeah.
You know, for sure. Someone I think it was last week's podcast, said like, one can't succeed if the other's failing.
Yeah.
Period. And I like that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's a reality, you know?
It's reality. Well, that's actually a good example of a team too. You're only as strong as the weakest team member.
For sure.
Too. So whether you're climbing a mountain or doing what you're doing. So that's why bringing your brother up, grabbing their arm, lifting them up. It ain't just about how strong you are if you have to rely on people around you.
Yeah. Well, one more thing I wanted to talk to you about was like you having a front row seat to seeing like the state of Seattle, because your business is just shy of downtown. Are you still considered SoDo kind of?
Fortunately, we're just outside of
the city limits.
Yeah, we're unincorporated King County, so we're in a great spot.
Okay.
In that regards, though, yeah, the city it's sad.
Well, we can just leave that at that then, because guess what? We just touched on a bunch of positivity.
Yeah,
I think that's a good place to wrap this up, man. Because we're already an hour and 42 minutes.
Are we really?
Like I looked down at the clock expecting it to be like 30 minutes and it was 107.
That's funny.
But that's how those are the good podcasts.
Yeah.
When they just keep fucking like, you, before you know it, it's like, dude, we're already at 2 hours.
Yeah.
And again, I think we'll have to do episode 2.
I'm good for it, man.
We have good energy and this has been a fun conversation, but I have a 13-year-old girl's birthday party to get to.
She's 1,000 times more important than I will ever be. And you are the right man for the job to be her dad.
I'll let you wrap it up then. Is there anything else that is on your mind or something you want to share? Or also, where can people find you? And if they want to either connect with you or more importantly, order a boat.
Yeah.
How do we make that stuff happen?
Yeah, well, we're on Facebook and Instagram. We have a website, www.wooldridgeboats.com, and that's WOOLDRIDGE. So there's 2 D's in there. And we have an Instagram, Wooldridge Boats, and a Facebook, Wooldridge Boats Official. So you can find us on there and check it out. And yes, shoot us a DM, or I have an email, grant@wooldridgeboats.com. If you want to connect, have a question about boats, about life, friendships, whatever. What I think of Greg's hair, anything like that. And I'll tell
Dude,
you,
you're growing the mullet too.
I
man.
like your hair because I got the same haircut right now. You know, there's a lot of things in life you can't control, but there's things you can control, and I can control my mullet right now. So I'm just going to roll with it, and it's okay, right? So no, besides that, I'm just grateful. You know, my thought going into this was I just get to hang out with a guy I'd like to get to know better, and friendship, whether there's boats involved or not. So my motive here has nothing to do with a boat or selling the boat, because I'm grateful for the boat situation, because that's how I met you, and that's how I met so many people, and that's how I can build a relationship with the people who work here. So thanks for having me on. I'm better for knowing you and for hearing what you speak about. And I'm thankful for your voice right now out there, because it's super important. The encouragement, the positivity, helping people understand that there's more potential for them there and their families and everything that they can do, and what this country's about, what it's founded on. Getting knowledge out there. People just want to believe what they hear. And instead, it's important to encourage those to go out and figure it out for themselves and study and understand. And so I thank you for all that, having me on, and look forward to coming up and hanging out in the river. So.
Dude, I couldn't wrap it up better than that. I appreciate you, and we'll have you on for round 2 for sure.
Sounds good, man.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Yeah.